Hi, let's get started on part 3 of the Appwich data analysis project. So in this project, of course, you want to make sure on the documentation sheet that your name is there. Let's go ahead and let's kind of do a save as and save it to a -2 file name before we forget. I tend to forget those things as we kind of move forward. So in this particular project, let me bring in the instructions. This is really designed to help you get an idea about producing dashboards. So this is the dashboard that we want to create in this particular project. And like with my previous videos, you can follow the instructions as they are listed. I will try to give you all the items that are in the instructions plus a couple of shortcuts. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we want to do is that we want to be able to create a trend charts tab. Now, in the past, in previous videos, I copied a previous page, so that way I kind of get all of the nuanced things in the worksheet. I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to go ahead and add a new worksheet, and I am going to rename that into trend space charts. There we go. And let's go ahead and put, following the instructions, we'll put trend charts in cell B2. And let's make sure that this cell style is set to title. All right, so there's a couple of things that we will be modifying. Just to have things done correctly, I'm actually going to go to the last step in our project because I don't want to do this at the end. So I am simply going to go to page layout. I'm going to go to orientation. I'm going to go to landscape. I'm going to set the scaling of the width to be 1 page. And I'm also going to go back and set up our custom header footer. And in the custom footer, on the left-hand side, it is our file name. In the middle, it is page/pages. And on the far right, it is the worksheet name. Okay. So I hit OK. And then, of course, OK. And I'm going to hit save just to make sure all that information gets saved. Okay, so that's the last step in the project. And that is just to make sure kind of things fit into place. All right, so for our first chart, I'm in step 2. We want to be able to look at the monthly financial performance in our monthly financial performance area, which is basically this table here. So let me kind of zoom in so we can see all the pieces. And what I want is I want a chart that will give me the months at the X or horizontal axis, and then I want for the primary vertical axis, I want total sales dollars. And for the secondary axis, I want an average of the sales dollars. So let me set this up. I'm going to select month, and then I'm going to select total sales here. And I'm going to suspect I'm going to create an error, but let's see if I do, because it's always fun to create errors and fix them along the way. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to my charts. I'm going to go to line chart, and I am going to hover over my 2D line chart. And if you notice in the preview, there are 3 series. Now, this might be something that happens to you, and the reason for that is because we actually selected the month here. So let's fix that before we even create a chart. Let's just select the data that we want in the vertical, and let's not worry about the horizontal axes at the moment. So let's go back to our charts, do 2D line chart, and now this time we only see the 2 series, which is going to be the sum of the total sales and the average of the total sales. So that's what we have here for our data. And now let's go ahead and make some modifications. And this is where I'm going to do the modifications. There are multiple ways of doing this, but let's go ahead and start here. The first thing I want to do is I want to edit this horizontal axis categories. Currently, Excel gives you 1 through 12 only because there are 12 records, but we want to make sure this is done correctly. So I'm going to go to Edit, and I specifically want to make sure that I'm grabbing the labels from this range, which is B17 to B28, so that way I know that I'm selecting from the proper range for my x-axis labels. Now for series 1, I want to edit this. Okay, it is currently selecting the total sales sum. So I am going to give this a name. I'm going to call it total sales. And for the second series, I'm going to edit. And then this is the average total sales. So this is going to be average sales. Hit OK. And I'll hit OK one more time. And you'll see that here in our chart, the legend has changed from total sales to average sales. So let's go ahead and make some changes here. The chart title is going to be monthly sales trend. And what I want to do is I want to add my axes titles, and I want to put the legend at the top. There we go. All right, so now as I look at this, we can see that our average sales is using the same axis as the primary axis of the total sales. And this doesn't show up well, so what we need to do is move this to a secondary axis. So one way of doing this is clicking on that particular series, and you can right-click after you selected the series and say Format Data Series. And when you do that, this Format Data Series option should show up on the right-hand side. Now, make sure, let me show a couple of things. I'm going to close this. Make sure you don't do this. Don't select on it and then select a dot. And then try to do a format, because this is just going to format that data point. What we want to do is make sure that everything in that series is selected. Right-click and say Format Data Series, and we can move that to a secondary axis. Now what I want to do, now that we have a secondary axis created, I want to edit this number. So here I'm going to go to the edit options for the number. I want to set the maximum actually for 300, so that way I can see some separation from the average sales versus the total sales. And I'm going to fix that number to only have 0 decimal places. All right, so that fixes those items. But now that we added a secondary axis, we now have to add a secondary axis title. Let's come back here to axis titles. Actually, if you deselect and reselect, you'll notice that now that secondary axis pops up again. Another way of doing that is just simply select on it and make sure that the secondary vertical axis is also selected. All right, let's fill in the blank spaces here. So for the primary vertical axis, this is total sales dollars. It has to be spelled as required. By the way, I am referencing figure 2 for this. For the horizontal, this is going to be month. And then for the secondary vertical, it is average sales dollars. All right. Now the last thing I want to do is I'm going to come up here when I select on the chart. Of course, I have chart design and format available. I'm going to go to format, go to shape outline, and select on black. Right? This gives that chart that when you select off of it, it gives it that black outline. All right, now let's move this to our trend chart sheet. So when I select on it, I can now go to chart design and move chart. And I am going to move it to trend charts. All right, so there it is. Now, according to our instructions, we need to move this so the upper left-hand corner is in B4. And our bottom right-hand corner is in I-18, which is really just a matter of just tossing that a little bit to the right. Okay, by the way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select column A and column J, and I'm going to modify those widths to be a width of 2. And this is going to help kind of narrow some of the blank space that's going to be available when we're done our little our dashboard. Okay, I want to double check, make sure I have all the requirements. So A is place the total sales to the left and average sales to the right. Modify the maximum of the secondary axis to 300. We did that. Apply a chart title. This is monthly sales trend. Axis labels month, total sales, average sales dollars. We did that. Modify the legend so it's at the top and it has total sales and average sales. We have that. And then we use the shape outline to apply a black outline around the chart. So we did all those things, so we're ready to move on to the next chart. So in chart 2, we're going to use the data from the item financial analysis. And what we want this time is we want the description information. We also want this percent of accumulated amount of the total items that we sell. And then we also want the sum of the total profit in this particular chart. Now, I'm going to create this in a way so it looks like the chart that is in the instructions, which will, of course, help you get a correct score. But also it kind of shows and exemplifies some of the modifications that you can do in Excel when it comes to creating your chart. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to select on the description here. And I am going to then hold down my control key and select these adjacent cells here. And notice I did not select on the percent accumulated, which is what I want in the end. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Insert. I am going to this time select on a 2D column chart. All right. And now I have all of our data set up like this, and our chart is looking kind of what I want. So let's start making some modifications. So this time what I want to do is I want to change the type of chart that exemplifies what is on Series 2. And you can barely see Series 2 at the right-hand side of this column chart. So there's actually several ways you can do that. I'm just going to select on the chart in general, and I'm going to go to Change Chart Type. My bad. I forgot. I actually need to select on the data, right-click, and then I want to change Series Chart Type. Now, when we go to Change Series Chart Type, we now get several options. Now, Series 1, we actually want to keep that as a clustered column chart. But Series 2 is the one I want to change, and I want to make that a line chart. And I'm going to use the option that's available here and put that on a secondary axis. So now we can see the data as it's coming through. All right. This is not complete yet, but that's what we want to change here. All right. So now the next thing I want to do is I actually want to use the proper data for that second series. So I'm going to go to Select Data, go to Series 2, and I'm going to edit it. Now currently, when I look at what is being selected for the data, it is what is in column K. So I actually want to change that so that way it is what's in column E. And I want to give it a name, and that name is going to be percent accum for accumulated items, items sold. Now for Series 1, I want to edit this as well, but this time I'm only going to edit the name, and it's going to be total profit. All right, everything is changed here. Now let's take a look at our chart. It's looking really good. All right, let's make some more adjustments. Let's go ahead and add our access titles. Now in this particular case, we do not need the horizontal access title. So let's go over here, shut off the primary horizontal. Now let's move the legend to the top. Now, the last thing I want to do is I want to also make sure that, and it might be automatic for you, but I want to come here and make some modifications to the secondary numbers or the secondary vertical axis numbers. So once I select on this, if you still have your properties options open on the right, you can do that, or you just right click and say Format Axis. So when I'm here, I'm going to go to the numbers area, and I want to change the decimal places to 0. And I want to make sure that the maximum is at 0.8, and it is. So we're good to go. All right, let's now fill in the text that we need. So this is top 15 item performance. On the left, this is total profit. And on the right, this will be percent accum items sold. All right. Last thing is we have to then go ahead and go back to chart format, go to shape outline and set it in black. All right, I'm going to double check to see if I have everything done. Let's see. I have a total profit on the left, percent accumulated items sold on the right. On the secondary axis, yes, rename each of these to total profit, percent accumulated items sold, respectively. Adjust the maximum values to facilitate easy visualization. We have done that. That seems to be automatic for us. Change the chart title to top 15 items performance. Rename series 1 as total profit and series 2 to percent accum items sold. And add the outline. All right, so the next thing we need to do is move this to the right place. So I am going to select on it, go to chart design, go to move chart, and let's go ahead and put this in trend charts. All right, now this chart belongs at, let me make sure I'm putting this in the right place, B20. And all the way down to I-34. So let's just go ahead and move this to 34. And of course, bring that to I. Let's just make sure everything looks still pretty good, and it does. So we are done with that one. All right, always save your work. Hit Control S if necessary. All right, let's go on to chart number 3, which is going to be a clustered column chart, which is going to have total sales and total profit by the annual product category performance. So we're going back to the category analysis. And what I want here is I want the category. And then I also want total sales right here. And I want to compare that to the total profit, because sometimes you can sell a lot but not get a lot of profit, and other items you can not sell a lot but get a ton of profit. So this time, because I'm doing a column chart, I can always select my horizontal axis in the combination. So I select my category, hold down my control key, select my sum total sales. Once again, still holding down my control key, select sum total profit, go insert, come up here, do 2D clustered column, and we're already really close to where we need to be. All right, so one of the things that that is really simple here is that we can just make some basic changes. So what I'm going to do first is I am going to add some access titles. So I'm sorry, I want the primary horizontal. Okay. Now in this particular case, I actually want to make some changes to look like the figure 4 that we have in our instructions. Now let me kind of show you this real quick. This is what we want it to look like when we're done. And I have a feeling, selecting on the chart one more time, that if I go to chart design and look at some of the quick layout options, here we go. Option number 2 gives me something really close. I'm going to work with that instead. So I went to quick layout and select layout 2. Now I'm going to go back, add that horizontal primary axis. Now that primary axis, we're going to name it product category. Okay, and then we're going to click the chart, go to select data. We're going to edit series 1, so that is total sales. We're going to edit series 2, so that is total profit. There we go. We're going to go back to the chart title, and we're going to go to annual product category performance. All right, so we got to make a couple of adjustments. We want to turn these number labels up so that way they're vertical. There's actually 2 ways you can do this. I'm going to show you both ways. So first you select on the labels that we're going to be dealing with. So we're going to be dealing with these. Notice that all of the labels in that series are selected. I could come over here to my properties dialog, go to text options. I think it's text box here. There we go. And then we also have text direction, and we can rotate it all to 270 degrees. And notice it puts everything on end. The second way of doing this, I'm going to select in a white area of the chart up in the upper right hand corner. Then select on my series, and I can just go to the home menu as well and use this option to rotate text up, and it does exactly the same thing. All right, selecting on our chart, I'm going to go to Format, and I'm going to do a shape outline of black. That looks like what we have in the picture, so now I'm going to go ahead and move that chart. This time I'm going to use the dialog by clicking on right, go to Move Chart, and I am going to put that in Trend Charts. All right. Now, where do I want to put this? I want to put this in K4. All the way down to R18. So I'm just going to toss it over to the right a little bit, and that is good to go. All right. So we have 3 of our major charts of our dashboard. Now the next 2 are going to be a little bit tricky. So the next one, what we want to do is we want to do an analysis of the percent of sales from these categories. I zoomed in a little too much, so those got squished a hair. There we go. Now, what I want to do here is I want to basically change this to something that is going to be a percent profit. So to make things easy, I'm just going to copy what is in cell I. I am going to paste it here, what is in cell L, and I'm going to unselect Merge and Center. And then I'm going to right click and delete cell column M. Now let's change this. This is going to be percent profit. All right. Here's how I create that percent profit value. It's going to be equal to what is in cell I6 divided by the sum of all of the values of I6 all the way to I11. Make that an absolute value by selecting your function key F4. And now we get a percentage value. I'm going to go ahead and convert that to a percentage and add 1 decimal place. All right, now let's just go ahead, and if we did our formula right, we can bring all those down, and that is 100% total. Now let's go ahead and make a stacked column chart. Actually, we want to create a 100% stacked column chart out of this data. So let's select this data and the category data. We're going to go to Insert, go to Charts, and I want to select the chart to the far right. That's the 100% stacked column chart. Now, this might not look anything like what is in the instructions. In fact, let me show you where we want to go. In the instructions, we want to have a chart that looks similar to this. And you might be thinking, how do I get there from here? Well, select on your chart. If you have this chart, you're in great shape. All we have to do is come up here to Chart Design, go Switch Column Row, and automatically it restacks everything to a 100%. Now, we're going to start to modify this to have all the pieces that we need. So what we're going to do is go ahead and change this layout to one of the quick layouts. Let's go to Quick Layout 2. And it starts to give us the pieces that we need. Now let's make some modifications. Let's move our legend to the right. And now let's delete the horizontal axis. So here we have axis. Let's just take that out. All right. And let's see what we have next. That was step D. Let's go to step E. We want to change the chart title to percent total profit by category. There we go. And now we want to edit it, and we want to move a couple of things out. It looks like that I also lost the axis, the vertical axis on the left. So I'm going to come back here. Let's see how I messed that up. So I got rid of the primary and the primary vertical. Let's put the primary vertical back. There we go. Now that's what we need in our picture. Now, the next step is a little bit of modifying, and we need this to be in the proper size and in the proper space for our dashboard. So I'm going to go ahead and move that right now. So I'm going to go ahead and move it to our trend charts. And it needs to be down here in this little squashy area, starting with K20, it looks like. And just bring it down a little bit to the right. And this time I am stopping it in N34. Okay, so it is going to be placed in, let me validate that based on our instructions, K20 to N34. So that's correct. All right, so what I'm going to do is I got to make some modifications because I want to make sure that as we resize all of this, that the text is the same size and all other things are considered. But also I have to move out those labels so that way that there's some leader lines to it. So to do this, I'm going to zoom into the chart as close as my screen will allow me. And I'm going to make some modifications. So I'll try to do this slow so you can follow me. I'm going to select in the white area just to the right of the column. And you can see I get this box of the chart area. I'm going to click and drag the plot area just a little bit to the left to make it smaller. This gives me space so I can move these labels off to the right. Now I'm going to click on each of these labels and just click and drag them to the right. And believe it or not, there is no automatic function that allows me to move these labels from inside the column to outside the column. So I have to do this manually. Little frustrating. Excel, Microsoft, if you're watching, please fix that. That should be an automatic checkbox that we can move around. Okay. So move these to the best of your ability. Get them close. They don't have to be perfect, as long as they're in this area. Now, our instructions want everything to be a 10-point font except for the title here. This title has to be 14-point. So here's my trick to fix that. I'm going to select in the white area in the upper left-hand corner of the chart. Make sure everything is selected. When everything's selected, I can come down here and change my font size to whatever I want. And I'm just going to make sure that 10 is the font size. Now I'm just going to select on the box that is the total profit by category, right? And by the way, did everything go to 10? There we go. And I want to make sure that this is 14. Boom. All right. Now, using our figure 6, let's just make sure everything is cleaned up and moved to places it should be. And that will finish that one. The last thing I need to do, I need to go to Format, fix that outline, and convert it to black. All right, so that is that stacked column chart. It's a stacked 100% chart, so it'll always be in percentages. All right, let's get on to the next chart. This is chart 5. So now we want to go back to our category analysis. And this time we want to get the average total profit by category. So actually we want to use these values here in column J. So go ahead and select the category, select those values in the average, and it's pretty much the same thing we just did, except this time we are going to use the stacked column chart. And we are also going to switch column rows, and things start to line up. Isn't that nice? Let's go to Quick Layout 2. Let's go ahead and move that legend off to the right. Let's get rid of the axes completely this time. Let's go ahead and put the primary vertical label in. And now let's make our modifications from here. So the chart title is AVG, Total Profit by category. And the X or the Y axis over here is AVG, profit. And we want to put this little $sign in there so we know the units. Oh, I just got to put one. All right. Okay, let's select on this chart. Let's go to format. Let's give it a black outline. And let's move it to where it needs to be. So that way we can size it and do all the things appropriately. So this one needs to be in the bottom right-hand corner. So let me make sure I select on that particular chart. And slide it over. Move it a little larger. Boom. All right. So now I'm going to adjust this a little bit. Actually, I'm noticing that the y-axis probably isn't scaled correctly. So I need to fix that. Let me show you how we're going to do that. So I'm actually going to come over here, come back to axes, and let's go ahead and look at that primary vertical. What's the scale here? So notice that the scale is going all the way to $14. We don't need that. So let's go over here to the number and let's check the axes options. Let's change that from 14 to 12. And that sets us up much, much better. All right, we got that figured out. Now let's go ahead and let's hide that axis now that we've made that adjustment. Boom. Okay, great. Now let's go ahead and zoom in as best as we can. And let's go ahead and shift this over to the left a little bit. And let's pull those labels out so they can be read. Come on. There we go. Trying to get everything underneath at least some kind of vertical line. All right, let's adjust our font size. So I select on the entire chart. Let me make sure that it is all set to size 10. Now I'm going to select on the title, and I'll make sure that is a 14. There we go. Make sure everything stayed the same, and I'm going to back out, and this is our dashboard. So the last thing I want to do is I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to take the grid lines off, and I want to make sure that my headers and all those little nuanced things are in the proper place. So I'm going to hit Control P or Command P. This is giving me a print preview, and this is what it's going to look like. Notice that my file name is at the bottom left, page of pages in the middle, and trend charts is on the right. All right, so that should get us there. Make sure you save your work and, of course, submit it, and that should get you 100%. If there's any errors, I will have a follow-up video to help you fix any errors that I might have created during this video. All right, thank you. Reach out to your instructors, if you have any questions. All right, so I made an error with project part 3. And this is a good exercise so that way you can kind of see how I correct errors, and that way I can get a perfect score on my assignments. So this is fortuitous in a way, so it gives me an opportunity to teach you how to look at these reports. So just so that you know, I have a graded summary report, which I downloaded from Cengage, and it has my name, and of course it has my score. And as you scroll down, you can see all of the things that you're being graded on, and you can see that here is where I lost points. I got 10 out of 12. So it said the axis title to a chart, it should say total profit. Now, I could argue with myself and say, hey, I did that. But notice that if you look down below, you'll see all the tabs of the project that was submitted. So you don't have to look at the work that you thought you submitted. This is actually what the grader had seen. So I'm going to go select on charts or trend charts. And you notice right here, there is a flag. It says step 3. In the trend charts worksheet, the second combo chart's primary vertical axis should be total profit. And then if you take a look right here, you can see that I spelled total with a T-O-T-L. So it is incorrect. Now don't make the mistake and try to correct it here. Let's go ahead and open the original assignment. So I'm going to go ahead, going to go find the assignment that I submitted, which is this one. Notice it doesn't have the graded report at the beginning. And all I'm going to do is make that correction. And that should do it. I'm going to save it. I am going to close this one, close the graded report. It asks me if I want to save the grading report. I'm going to say no. And then I'm going to go back here. And you can see I've made several attempts just so that way I can make this video. But what I'm going to do is I have to close out the Cengage platform, open up the assignment again, and start once more. But this time I can now just go ahead and upload my corrected assignment and hit submit. And of course, it will then regrade it. So I hope that helps you out for correcting your assignment. This will work for all assignments that use this format. Thank you.